Hey guys, Mr. Happy here, and today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the patch 2.1 website and trailer, just to see if I can find anything that's sort of new that maybe we can use as sort of a hint as to how some of these things are going to work and some of the mechanics we're going to be seeing in patch 2.1. I'm going to be doing them chronologically in the way that they're played throughout the trailer, so if you'd like to watch the trailer side by side with this video and sort of pick out those things, maybe make some of your own thoughts and judgments, definitely do that. I think that would definitely be a great idea. So first, starting off, we're going to talk about the Crystal Tower. And the trailer made the content within the Crystal Tower look more like something you'd expect out of a 24-man raid. I mean, at least there was big bosses, a lot of ads all over the place, and there wasn't really much mechanically. We did get a hint about how some of the bosses are going to work. We saw some of the major enemies, such as the King Behemoth. We saw Thanatos, although we didn't actually see Thanatos in the trailer. I think I know how they're going to implement him. Not saying 100% I know for sure, but he's definitely part of the Atomos fight, which is definitely something I want to talk about. So that is actually one of the more interesting notes, is there were Atomos-like void portals that was seen as one of the boss encounters, and it makes me wonder lore-wise if he'll be returning to helping explain why the Crystal Towers become such an importance to the realm, I guess, what its real significance is as an elegant piece of technology. For those of you who don't know, Atomos was present in 1.0. He sucked the Aether out of most of the Aetherites, so they became orange and useless. Now they seem to be having, now the Aether has returned to them, although he doesn't require as much, it doesn't require anima anymore to travel between them. So it's just, adventurers can travel between them, and and apparently a guard charges you every time you get there. So the final boss of the first floor, his name was Acheron or Acheron or something like that. I think it's Acheron. I originally thought he might be the Iron Giant. He might be a reimagining of the Iron Giant. It was the only thing that really made sense boss-wise, but it seems that they've gone with a more common enemy as the final first boss of the Crystal Tower. I expected to see one iconic character, and I guess there are iconic characters. Thanatos and King Behemoth are both extremely iconic, especially King Behemoth. I've been wanting them to implement a real Behemoth fight, and I hope that this does justice over the Behemoth Fate, which is just a complete disaster. And then, of course, you have Acheron. Acherons were just really powerful enemies in Final Fantasy III, so they're not necessarily super iconic. So I suspect the second floor of the tower will maybe have multiple iconic foes, as opposed to just one, because you have to remember that Crystal Tower patches are about 6 months apart, so they can't do only one of those bosses from the poster every single time, or there's just no way they're going to be able to get through all those bosses realistically before the expansion, unless the expansion is farther off than we think, which is about a year and 9 months away. So I guess there's really not much we can see. So with Cloud of Darkness being the ultimate goal, probably in the final Crystal Tower patch, whenever that might be. Now there wasn't really much more to say about that. It looked like, we saw some big mobs, we saw some death abilities, and we just saw a very, very basic preview of the dungeon. So let's move on from the Crystal Tower. Next, we have the Wolf's Den. Now, this trailer didn't show much more than the last PvP trailer did. I mean, it was just more staged PvP action. We saw a few animations here that resembled what will look like new PvP abilities, but it was hard to really see their effectiveness in this video. It's really hard to see the effectiveness of an ability unless you slow it down and actually show the ability being used. So I still wish they'd just release a preview video for PvP where it's just like 8 developers, battling each other, team 4 versus 4. I know you can't really there's no real 4 versus 4, but for testing purposes, just to show how a real PvP match would look, I think that would be excellent. So hopefully Yoshi P will attempt some PvP in the live letter 11. However, while there wasn't much in the trailer, one thing I did notice on the website for 2.1, however, was a screenshot showcasing PvP abilities. So it seems that everyone will have a maximum of 10 PvP abilities they can use on top of their regular abilities, with each Grand Company possessing their own set of abilities. It also seems that the list of PvP abilities is not job specific, as things like Mana Song and Farshot are present in the screenshot, and the guy is on a warrior. So I'm quite interested to see this explained and expanded upon, because it certainly means we could be seeing a lot more diversity in specs for PvP. People who value certain abilities over other abilities, and we could see it's definitely a lot more involved than I thought it would be, or at least it looks more involved. I'm not saying it is yet, because we haven't really seen enough of it, but hopefully it'll mean for some good on-the-fly thinking in PvP. Now we just have to see how the latency ends up affecting the PvP, the Wolf's Den, and we can look forward to other PvP types in future patches. But moving on from that, I'm really just going to glaze over housing because there's nothing really new here. We saw an NPC setting up the exterior and interior of the house, which we've seen plenty of already. We've seen the exterior, we've seen the interior. There was still no price. I mean, the devs did admit during the week that they are working on getting the exact price down for housing. That's like one last minute thing they're tweaking. So I'm assuming we won't learn about that till the live letter 11. I don't think we'll get any details on that beforehand. Next they showed off Good King Mogomog. This was just a replay of the trailer they showed us a while ago, and it's just more of a so this has really just become more of a compilation video. There's some new stuff in here, but there's a lot of old stuff that we've already seen here, so nothing really new surfaced from this. There's still just a ton going on, and the new version of the fight looks really, really busy, so I'm just looking forward to that fight in general. I think it's going to be a good, fun fight, and like they said, in between Garuda and Titan Hard Mode in terms of difficulty. Now, the next thing, Beastman Daily Quest. Now, when people think of Daily Quest, most people cringe. Oh, Daily Quests. Ugh. It's just a way to make money usually in most games. Get a few aesthetics, maybe bypass certain gear requirements by just gaining reputation in terms of the Daily Quest reputations. We don't know exactly how Daily Quest reputation is going to work at this point, but we got to see a nice preview of some of the quests here. Most importantly, some of them showed that the Tempered Beastmen are now attempting to capture Untempered Beastmen, namely the Sylphs, which will likely lead into their primals being awoken. It definitely shows they're trying to harness more power for their primal. And additionally, we saw that we shall strictly get Amalja and Sylph as the two Beastman quest areas we obtained for patch 2.1. We knew there was going to be two Beastman types that were going to be in 2.1, so these are the two. I'm assuming we'll get maybe two in 2.3 and 2 in 2.5. I'm definitely assuming we won't get more Beastman Daily Quests in 2.2. That's just my speculation, however. Some fun new quests include riding mounts such as Gubus and Drakes, which I'm wondering if they're going to make available as general mounts or if they're going to be strictly quest-related mounts. I definitely think that they should release the Drake. The Gubu, people are probably 50-50 about. Legacy people might get upset, but who cares, man? Just let the new people have their Gubu. You know, the Wandering Minstrel's coming back too, and he's got his own purpose, which we'll talk about later. So if you're gonna tease a Gubu like that, I hope that they do end up giving them some sort of Gubu mount, even if it's not exactly the same as the Legacy one. I think it's cool if they would give new players who never had the chance, who never played the game, the chance to get this mount that they're, you know, a lot of people covet that mount because it looks pretty good. So hopefully we'll be seeing more of these things implemented in 2.1. I really want to see this more expanded upon. Definitely really excited for Live Letter 11 for that. Now we get a super short preview of the treasure hunts, and there's a few things I want to comment on. First, this appears to have been a grade 4 treasure map. Now, in case you didn't know, there are 5 grades of treasure maps, as were told to us by a recent interview. And the people in this party were level 40, level 45. Of course, that could just be for testing purposes. It could be a detail that I could completely gloss over because it's not important. It could have just been that level for any reason at all. There's not to say that they were actually planning on attempting the treasure hunt. And it specifically showcases the leader doing a slash lookout in an area where the map appears to be sending him, which causes the chest to spawn. Now, upon approaching it, a giant enemy appears and the screen cuts away before they go to fight it. Now, this may actually be a grade 5 treasure map, despite what I just said before. I only said that based on the levels, but if we're ignoring that, there was one detail that I definitely think makes this a level 5 treasure map, and the reason was there's a little person symbol with the number 8 next to it. Now, this could mean anything, but it almost feels like it's telling me, at least from the video standpoint, that this was a treasure hunt meant to be done by 8 people. Now, the enemy didn't look like it was going to take 8 people to kill, but you never know. They could pump up the strength and give him a few unique mechanics, but it's a treasure map. I don't see them going really that hardcore about it. He might just take a pretty long time to kill. Who knows? So I guess we'll just have to wait for a little bit more details on that. It's a real possibility, though, which is welcome to me. I really like that sort of open world 8-man content that they could definitely introduce more of in the future. Now, we saw I'm going to call him the barber. I've looked it up every time I go to say it. I look it up before I go to say it, and I know there's people who are going to post the pronunciation in the comments below. I'm just calling him the barber. It's just way easier for me, so I'm sorry, guys. You know, they showed him in 2.1. He got a really fancy intro, so there was nothing really special here. Though, like I said, he had a very fancy intro, but immediately followed him, however, was the extremely interesting Hildebrand. Now, those of you who played 1.0 know who Hildebrand is. He is sort of iconic to the series, sort of forgotten in 2.0. A lot of people have been begging for his reappearance, though, because he's the best comic relief character, really, of Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm glad that players who didn't play 1.0 will now have the opportunity to experience the Agent of Equerry. I think it is Equerry. I don't know how that's pronounced, but yeah, we'll go with that. And it seems to be included as part of the main scenario, which is indicated by the A Realm Awoken's website, placing him under that such category. So in 1.0, he was just part of in-related quests when private rooms were unlocked back then. You know, they didn't always have in-rooms in 1.0, something we have now and we've had for 2.0 the whole time. They didn't always have in 1.0. So I'm curious to see if he'll have a similar role here, maybe something to do with private housing in the future, individual housing, who knows, I don't, but I guess we'll see. But he's mostly comedic relief with minor other purposes, but I think he might actually serve as his quote-unquote finest detective in this patch. He's definitely got room to explore just because he was placed under main scenario, so we shall see how Hildebrand is implemented in this patch. Now, we got to see the dungeons next. The first one they showed us was Pharaoh Sirius, which just went through the bosses real quick, showed off some regular enemies. We did get to see a few new dungeon mechanics here, such as falling rocks, possessed pirates, and giant birds swooping in and out. Definitely seems like they want this dungeon to feel a lot more deadly. It's something that was sort of present in Wanderer's Palace, not so much in AK. AK, obviously, the trek between the second and third boss has the random fireballs, but that's about it. This seems more like, how do I want to say, this seems more like Zamiel Darkhold, which had the eyeball going back and forth, and you sort of had to carefully trek through from crystal to crystal area. Wanderer's Palace, of course, had the speed aspect of it, where you have to kill things fast enough or the Tomberry will kill you, which I definitely appreciate dungeon mechanics like that, things to make you pay attention during the dungeon run. But we'll see how it all plays out. We did also see the last boss, which we had been teased about earlier in the week, I believe. And she showed to have heavily focused, like her mechanics-wise, that she's, you know, she's ensnared people over the years, and that they've all flocked to Pharaoh Sirius as sort of like with corrupted crystals protruding from their bodies, which is pretty weird, but she seems to be a very ad-centric boss, and she seems to have a very ad-centric dungeon with a lot of those guys hanging around. Some people even noted that there is a guy with a sword and a gun, one of the corrupted guys, and some people asked me if that was a new class. I don't think Musketeer could be gun sword. That's entirely possible. I wouldn't hold my breath that it's anything to hint that there's a new class coming soon. I think it's just a pirate. Literally just a pirate. So, you know, he's a pirate. I don't have any more to say about that. Next, we got to see Hawke and Copperbell Mines, though, and honestly, I was a little disappointed here. They definitely look different from their original counterparts, and, you know, they have new bosses, dungeon mechanics, you know, things that look like they belong in the dungeon, and it definitely looks harder, but I didn't see a lot of the quote-unquote new paths opened up, like Yoshi P originally talked about. You know, I saw mostly recycled areas, including the boss arenas. All the boss arenas were completely recycled. And while bosses definitely seem to be a lot different, I was hoping for a more diverse looking dungeon like we were originally anticipating. Definitely atmosphere is good, definitely new dungeon mechanics, definitely new types of monsters in the dungeons, more powerful monsters very clearly, definitely some interesting boss mechanics, but I would have liked to have seen more unique dungeons. Hawk Manor, I didn't actually expect there to be much of a change, but Copperbell Mines, so much room to explore, but I guess we'll just have to see exactly what's changed path-wise when it comes to those dungeons when we actually play them in less than 2 weeks. Now, they quickly showed off Duty Roulette while they were on the topic of dungeons, and there was nothing much to see here, though I do want to point out a couple of things. The first is that Sastasha seemed significantly darker in the video than it normally does. I'm not sure if that was meant to imply we may see a hard mode of Sastasha in 2.2. I don't think it was, because he queued for the low-level dungeons. Or if they just maybe did some work on the dungeons to make them more dark. Maybe when you queue through Duty Roulette, they can have sort of varied atmospheres. I think that would be pretty cool, but it seems like a lot of work to put into, you know, dungeons that are going to be part of the Duty Roulette. So I think it may have just been bugged lighting in the video, to be honest. And the second thing I want to point out, instant tank queue. Just saying. Hope DPS have a better time with the queues now that there are so many dungeons between the categories. Hopefully it cuts down on the queue times significantly. Now, they played the EX Primal videos again, stuff we've seen before, but always an awesome site. I mean, showcasing some of the new mechanics. I already spoke about these in, you know, my thoughts about the Live Letter X video that I did. I did a video along those lines, and I did speak about some of the individual mechanics I was expecting from those fights. Now, same goes for Hard Mode Ultima, which they teased the same trailer again, but I do want to make one note about the fight. In another recent video, I discussed how they mentioned there being very little as far as prerequisites go for Ultima Hard Mode. I did also mention that I was expecting some deep story elements pertaining to Ultimate Weapon's return. Now, those two things don't go together at all, so only one of them had to be right. So it seems now that the story here won't be that deeply involved. The Wandering Minstrel is how you're going to access the fight, and he's a man of many tales, and almost seems like all he's doing is opening up a gateway to fight a more powerful Ultimate Weapon, free of restrictions or involvement of the main scenario. Other than that, it just looks like an exciting fight. Probably won't be too difficult, but I'd expect him to offer a decent challenge for many players, and not to mention, he's just a badass. There's nothing more to really say about that. And finally, we come to the next main scenario quest, which we got teased. I didn't expect this to get teased, honestly. They didn't really tease much. It just seemed like they were, going, they were just continuing from where they left off, which is, what you'd expect from a deeper story involvement. Now, appears to be a means for introducing some of the new content as well. I suspect we'll see introductions to the new hard mode dungeons, Crystal Tower, Good King Mogomog, Beastman Quest, and the Extreme Mode Primals through this main scenario, as well as a deeper story involvement, which I will be doing a video on in the future to catch people up. I probably will also do a video pertaining to the entire Final Fantasy XIV story. So overall, it's a big patch. I'm very much excited for it. I think it could definitely be a great patch with a lot of things to do, especially when you're bored and your downtime. So what are you excited for at patch 2.1? Be sure to talk about it and discuss it in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, favorite, subscribe, and share for more Final Fantasy XIV and other Final Fantasy, and just a lot of other videos. Just subscribe to my channel. I post cool stuff. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. You can ask me questions there. If you ever need some advice about anything, shoot a question over there. You can use the public forum. You can shoot me a private message, whatever. Just, I don't really get around to my YouTube messages all too much because Google Plus just sucks. But yeah, that's my opinion, whatever. And also be sure to follow me on Twitch, where I do stream Final Fantasy games. I will be streaming other games as they come out. Very excited for some of the RPGs that are coming out next year, and I'm definitely planning on streaming some of them. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.